Looking for financial insights you can trust?
How do you protect yourself as an investor? What's the strategy?
I think it's really simple. I think you just want to be diversified in your portfolio.
The Payne family brings real-world experience to every conversation.
Well, I think that's the problem right now is, right, a lot of people that are close to retirement, they're taking so much risks. And if we do get a big sell-off, it could derail their retirement.
Listen to the Pain Points of Wealth on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Listen, all you New Yorkers. Excuse me, taxi.
Okay, man, we're looking around.
This is the 77 WABC minicast.
Welcome back to Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party. Jesse is the county chair of the Suffolk County Republican Party, as well as being the vice chair of the New York State Party. Eric Levine, noted attorney, commentator, and essayist. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. So, shifting gears, gentlemen, I want to talk to you about the Mamdani political honeymoon should now be over. And let me submit to you why, and I want to get both of your thoughts on this. You know, one of the basic things about being a mayor is providing municipal services, keeping the government working, keep the city working, keep the economy working, allowing kids to go to school, allowing people to go to work, allowing the hospitals to provide for the patients, food at the grocery stores, medical attention from these clinics in the neighborhoods. Everything came to a halt in the city of New York, and it came to a halt for a better part of 10 days. And if I look out the window here in Manhattan, you still have these big snowbanks which block passage of cars and of pedestrians, and things did not move. And in my opinion, Mamdani failed in that test. He was wearing a nice new jacket that was custom made and custom embroidered, and he looked just swell, because he always looks just swell, but he didn't do his job as mayor. So as LaGuardia famously said, there's no Democratic Republican way to collect the garbage, and I submit to you, there's no capitalist way or socialist way to clean the streets. You clean the streets, baby, because that's your job. And if you're not going to do your job, why did you run for the office? So I want to raise a couple of things, and I want to get your thoughts. There was just an incident with an emotionally disturbed person, and he wound up being shot by the police, and he lunged at the cops with a knife. So Mamdani, instead of backing law enforcement and the police, said, oh, this is an example of why we need this new unit I'm creating, this community response effort, the community response group of the police department doesn't work. It's dangerous. Look what happened. I want to send social workers in. And I submit to you that if the social workers were there instead of the cops, what you would have had was one dead social worker, or at least one cut-up social worker. And what right does he have to announce in advance that the cops were wrong, that this was a bad shooting? He wasn't there. He didn't know what happened. He immediately rallied behind the emotionally disturbed person who was putting everybody's life at risk and against the cops, and prejudged and said the cops were guilty of a crime. And so how is a DA supposed to do his or her job, and a judge and jury are supposed to do their job on the merits without fear or favor, doing the right thing, when this guy has already prejudged it? That's not his job as mayor to prejudge activities like this at all. Then you have Senator Cassidy of Louisiana, who's chairman of the Health Committee, and he says to Mamdani in a letter that was just released, look, Mayor Adams had these executive orders. You rescinded them on the first day. They protected the Jewish community. They protected houses of worship. They protected against discrimination against the state of Israel and the Jewish community by the boycott, divestiture, sanction, which was vetoed by Mamdani. He says, no, that's off the table. So that means that government of the city of New York can get involved in foreign policy by boycotting and sanctioning, divesting from the state of Israel, really? And Senator Cassidy, to his credit, points out, he says, look, if you're doing this and discriminating against the Jewish community in New York, you may well have waived and violated your obligations under federal law to get federal money for health care. And it's in excess of $2 billion, which is due in June. And he's saying, I want to know what you're doing to protect the community, what you're doing to stay out of that kind of nonsense, and you're doing your job. So it'll be interesting to see what the response of the Mamdani administration is to Senator Cassidy and the Health Committee of the Senate. And then last, the New York City Department of Health. Department of Health has this little clique who decided that Israel is involved in apartheid, genocide, brutality, bias against the Palestinian people, and therefore they've created a working group using governmental space, governmental time, governmental resources, the auspices of the New York City Department of Health to attack the state of Israel and the Jewish community. And to her credit, the new Speaker of the Council, Julie Menon, as well as the Chair of the Health Committee, Lynn Schulman, are calling them out on this, and that will probably be hearings by the City Council about this renegade group in the Department of Health. I respectfully submit these people have already violated the city charter by engaging in political activity using governmental resources. They should be charged with the misdemeanor that is, and they should be fired. Eric.
Yeah, and in terms of you're saying that Mamdani's honeymoon period is over, I think for many of us there was never a honeymoon, and for people like the Democratic Socialists of America, the honeymoon will never end because they love this. But it's very, very problematic. I mean, to your point regarding the police and this mentally disturbed individual who came at the police officer with a knife. The idea that he would go to the knife wielder's family and publicly state, to give his condolences and then publicly state that this individual shouldn't be prosecuted, that is so out of his realm. I mean, that's completely, Alvin Bragg's department. Now, I understand Alvin Bragg may decide to prosecute the police officer because his view of the world is almost as distorted as Mamdani's. But notwithstanding that is not Mamdani's role to say, but Mamdani loves this because by siding with the person who is threatening the cop, he alienates cops, and he's interested in alienating cops because he wants cops to resign, and he's going to succeed in that because while he truly, in his heart and soul, he's let it be known before he ran for mayor, wants to defund the police. For him, the best way to do it is to antagonize the police so that it increases the already record-setting retirements that we're seeing. So if you get more and more police retiring, he says, I didn't defund them, they left. If he discourages people from joining the police academy, he says, I didn't prevent people from joining the academy, they just chose not to sign up. So you'll have a depletion of the police force, and in their place he will put social workers. And the social worker, if they had been called first to this circumstance, as you point out, Richard, correctly, he'd have one dead social worker. And then would he still be saying, well, this person is mentally disturbed, what they really need is treatment, not prosecution? This is the dystopia that this guy lays out. But for the Democratic Socialists of America, for the true believers, for the people in his administration, this is great. Exactly what we want. When you come to the points about the Bill Cassidy letter and is questioning Mamdani's executive orders, which really solidifies anti-Semitism as the policy of New York City government, Mamdani would say, well, I'm not an anti-Semite. I'm an anti-Zionist. For him, the political rhetoric is, if you're a Jew, I love you, unless you support Israel, unless you are a Zionist. In which case, if you're a Zionist, you are an oppressor. You are white, and you are an oppressor. And if you are an oppressor, the oppressed are allowed to rise up and defend themselves in any possible way, however they want to do it. And you're not entitled to protection. So he's prepared to protect his Jews, but he's not prepared to protect Zionists. That's really the bizarreness of that's really the fine point and distinction that he makes. So when he starts saying, our treasured Jewish community, what he leaves out is our treasured Jewish community to the extent that they do not support the state of Israel and believe that the Jewish state has a right to exist. That's what he leaves out. That's why he says, when a Nazi or right-wing group draws a swastika on a synagogue, he's appalled. But if kafir Nazis show up at a synagogue and chant, globalize the Intifada, we're with Hamas, Hitler was right, those people, that's okay because they're the oppressed rising up against oppressors. They're speaking out against Zionism. That's legitimate. And that's the distinction he draws. So when Bill Cassidy writes his letter, Bill Cassidy is writing from the perspective that if you're anti-Zionist, you're anti-Semitic. Mamdani sees it as, if I'm anti-Zionist, I'm fighting hate, but he distorts the definition of anti-Semitism to say, how can I be an anti-Semite? Because I'm going to define it in a way that excludes anything that I do, so I can't, by definition, be an anti-Semite. Understand, that's why he repealed in his first day, as part of one of his executive orders, the definition of the International Holocaust Remembrance Association's definition of anti-Semitism. Because as soon as you have a fixed target, as soon as you have a definition, that's something you could point to. And part of that definition is to say, if you do not believe the Jewish people have a right to their homeland, or that the Jewish state of Israel has a right to exist, that reflects anti-Semitism. By definition, Mamdani would have been an anti-Semite. That's why he had to repeal it. So in order to make him put himself under the rubric of I'm not an anti-Semite, that's why he had to repeal this. But from Cassidy's perspective, the IHRA is policy in the federal government. Mamdani is an anti-Semite, and he's challenging that. And kudos and bravo to Cassidy. And I am all for his cutting off funding to the city of New York, notwithstanding that I live and spend a lot of time there and work there. There are things that are more important. Mamdani cannot, with his demonic smile, he says and do these crazy things, which are anti-American, anti-Semitic, pro-socialist, anti-Western civilization, and then he'll smile as if now everything's okay. And a perfect example of what is going on at the City Department of Health. This doesn't happen by accident. He is setting the example. So the City Department of Health, which should have no international policy, foreign policy, this idea, it's not just that they are saying that they're wading into foreign policy and accusing Israel of committing genocide. It's a lie. They're weighing in, and this doesn't bother Mamdani. Has anybody heard criticisms about this? Has he spoken out against it?
Not at all.
Of course not.
Not at all.
Not at all. He's been absolutely silent about it because he supports it. And this is going to be a real problem. So the two groups, and this should come as no surprise, because the two groups that Mamdani attacked most in his prior life before he ran for mayor, and for a large part while he ran for mayor, were the cops and Jews. He detests cops and Jews, and to the extent that he can force cops out of working, to push them out of the force, or he can coerce Jews into leaving the city. He's good with that. Yeah. He's okay with that.
Jesse.
And that's what he's attempting to achieve. So this should come as a surprise to no one.
Jesse, you know a great deal about government, having been a government official and being the county chair out in Suffolk. I mean, isn't it amazing to you as you sit back and look at this, that they're using governmental resources in the offices, equipment, supplies, time, diversion from doing their job? If they want to go outside the premises and not use governmental resources, that's one thing. But if they're misusing government resources, shouldn't the DAs be going after them?
Absolutely. I don't think the DAs will do anything there, but any right-minded individual in government should do two things immediately. Number one, anyone that's involved in that using taxpayer dollars for political purposes, if they're an at-will or at the pleasure of management employee, should be terminated immediately. If you're a union, if you have your union protection rights, there's a process in which needs to be followed for a Section 75 with hearings and representation by that individual, by his labor group, and actions to terminate, suspend, or to discipline should be taken immediately. And certainly, there should be a third aspect of this, an audit to make sure where else this is happening in New York City's government under that state. We saw some of this take place in the federal government under the Biden administration. So that's number one on that issue. No, you can't do that. It's against the law, and it really is against the public trust. And that's why there's skepticism about local government amongst the electorate. I know we're banging up against our deadline here. The other thing about Mamdani, He's a 33-year-old, no-show assemblyman that's a Nepo baby who is successful, but because of his rich parents and his mother, who's is part of the entertainment industry, who I believe allegedly may have also been named or in the Epstein files. He has no experience.
The reports say three times. 3 times.
No experience running a business, no experience running himself. He never or rarely showed up as a member of the assembly in Albany. This was destined to fail. The first test, I mean, there is these little milestones that we look at like in politics. The first test for any chief executive is always going to be your first winter storm. He failed miserably.
16 or 17 people died because of that.
That's what I wanted to get to. There's an inconvenience with the snow blocking sidewalks, and the snow did fall. And I mean, every Department of Public Works had an issue clearing streets. It doesn't matter with the way the snow fell. But his policy, his choice to not shelter these individuals, to allow those encampments, led to the death of 17 individuals. This is the death of 17 individuals on his hands. And the city council should hold him accountable. Even those who are like-minded in their political philosophy. Think of it this way. You just lost 17 voters that are part of your constituency, and it never should have happened. As it comes to this issue with this unfortunate shooting in Queens with this individual that's mentally disturbed, I have to admit, mainstream media held Mamdani to the fire when he, I think, was just waiting for something like this to happen so he can come out with his community protection force to replace the police officers. And he stated that, like you said, social workers should be sent when a 911 calls out. And then until there is a violent situation, such as a weapon, the New York Police Department should be called on the scene. Well, as the reporter aptly pointed out to him, in this 911 call, there was no alert to a weapon. It's when the New York City police officers, those brave men and women, went to the location to remove, as the family requested, this individual from their home, that he was a knife-wielding individual, and they followed their training to protect themselves and to protect those innocent victims there. It is an unfortunate situation, but what are we going to do under Mamdani's world? Mamdani's world is we send a social worker when he sees or she sees the knife, which is probably stuck in their chest at this point. That's when they call for backup in the cops with weapons. No way. This is wrong, and it's not. It can't be allowed to happen. What I need to ask ourselves, and we need to ask ourselves, we spoke about this leading up to Mamdani taking office. I supported Police Commissioner Tisch staying on board. But I wonder what's going on in her mind right now. Is she regretting her decision? Is she contemplating her future because of these actions, not by the men and women of uniform or of the police department, but of the mayor of the city of New York?
Well, I think that's exactly right.
And this is precisely why I thought that Police Commissioner Tisch should not have taken, this is one of the rare times that Jesse and I disagree. She should not have taken the position. She should have resigned, because she continues, as long as she's there, she continues to give cover to this guy's anti-cop rhetoric and anti-Semitic policies.
I think that's right. I think
we need an entire segment on what we both discussed here. The future of the New York City Police Department, the way that they're trying to get retirements to increase, slow down academies entrance, and what will Commissioner Tisch do, and what kind of position is she in? Because as we disagreed, I think that you needed an adult in the room, and for the safety of the people in the city of New York, I said, politics, forget about politics. Put a good commissioner in place to keep us safe. But she has to be conflicted right now.
I feel very badly for her. I believe she's trying.
So do I.
I think she's trying to do what, in her good conscience, is the right thing to do to protect the police force's integrity and its ability to function, to protect the public safety. But it's a terrible choice that she has to make, because if she walks away from the job, what kind of clown is Mamdani going to be putting in there?
Don't get me wrong. I think she's a magnificent public servant. She's in a very difficult spot. I appreciate that. I understand that. But I think the better choice here is for her to have resigned.
Well, gentlemen, I want to thank you again for another wonderful segment on Let the Record Show. I hope our audience enjoyed the conversation as much as I did. This has been Let the Record Show with Chairman Garcia of the Republican Party, noted attorney, commentator, essayist, Eric Levine. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. Thank you for listening. As always, God bless you, God bless your families, and God bless America. And Eric, to you, congratulations on your new granddaughter. We're very happy for you. And when she gets older, I hope she learns how to vote the right way, and Jesse will tell her exactly what that is.
Whatever she does, it will be spectacular. That's all I can say.
After all, she's a Levine. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, audience. Thank you.
Looking for financial insights you can trust?
How do you protect yourself as an investor? What's the strategy?
I think it's really simple. I think you just want to be diversified in your portfolio.
The Payne family brings real-world experience to every conversation.
Well, I think that's the problem right now is, right, a lot of people that are close to retirement, they're taking so much risks. And if we do get a big sell-off, it could derail their retirement.
Listen to the Payne Points of Wealth on the Red Apple Podcast Network.